Hey everyone, welcome back to BDG Reviews. Night 31, the 31 Days of Horror. And I said I'd try to get something special for tonight, so I decided to do something sort of special. I am covering now 50 underrated horror films. Now, these are in no particular order except for the last 10. You know, the first 40 are just, they're you can swap them out as you want, you know. It's not a rating, it's just literally movies that are severely underrated and need to be talked about more than they are. I don't know what else to say. But yeah, I'm not going to be going too in-depth with these. Like, I'm not going to be giving ratings or whatever. I'm just going to be talking about the movies themselves. But, you know, it is what it is. And I hope you enjoy. This is fixing to be quite a long video, I think. So, without further ado, let's get started. First up, we have Horrors of the Black Museum. Great flick from 1959. It's just a really cool premise. You know, if you don't know, the Black Museum is in Scotland Yard. It's like where they keep, like, you can't visit it or anything, but it's where the Scotland Yard keep their like weapons and everything used in like murders and everything. So it's kind of neat that, like, you know, they're using weapons that are from there, kind of thing. Good flick. Next, we have H.P. Lovecraft's Necronomicon. This is a bootleg Blu-ray. You know, solid little anthology. Not all super Lovecraftian. Well, let's put it this way. Lovecraftian, but all over the place. Let's just say that. Still, good flick. Next up, The Ruins. No one talks about The Ruins anymore, and they should be ashamed of themselves because it's creepy, it's atmospheric, it's just twisted, and the fact that everything that happens in here, every horrible thing that happens in this movie, these people do to themselves. Just saying. Next we got Screamers, sci-fi horror flick. Little creatures, like little cybernetic creatures under the sand that scream and kill you. Think Terminator, but on like a much smaller scale. Good stuff. Next, we have Lord of Tears. This is a custom cover for my DVD. Not my DVD, my Blu-ray. From Hex Media. Really solid, like, folk horror type thing. If you've never seen it, remedy that right away. The Owl Man so commands it. Next, we have Virus. This is one with Jamie Lee Curtis, Donald Sutherland, William Baldwin. You know, it's got like a pretty packed cast. But honestly, people have completely forgot about this movie. And it's a shame because it's honestly an interesting flick. Basically, they downloaded Evil from the Mir space station before it was like the International Space Station. So, good stuff. Next, we have Bangkok Haunted. This is a Thai anthology film. Really good stories, and they all tie together, and it just works. It really is a good flick. Next, we got Pyewacket. I've said before, Pyewacket is what Slenderman should have been. So if you saw Slenderman and you were disappointed, give Pyewacket a try, and this shows you what, you know, that type of horror how it can really work. Next, we have, this one's going to come as a surprise to some people, Dreamcatcher. Thanks to my buddy Rob for sending me this copy. Sweet. Is this a great movie? No. But it doesn't deserve the hate that it gets. And, I mean, even Stephen King shits on it. But honestly, it's a decent enough movie, and it's a creepy enough, like, thoughts, like, and plot. But it's failed by bad CGI at the end, definitely, and an ending that could have been done a hell of a lot better. I think on Body Bags I have a review for this, and in that I think I pretty much mention what my ideal ending of this would have been, and it would have been much simpler and it would have worked really good. So yeah, still a good movie though, honestly. Next, Demons 2. Now you're probably thinking, Demons 2, that's quite a famous movie. Yeah, it's famous. Everyone talks about Demons. Not many people talk about Demons 2. Demons 2 is a blast. Always has been. And the fact that, it's always overshadowed by Demons 1, it's the nature of sequels. There are a few in this list that are sequels, and the main reason they're in here is because, everyone talks about the original, no one talks about the sequel. But damn good flick. Next, this is actually an original film, if you would believe. Flesh for the Beast. Really, really sleazy. Tons of nudity, tons of gore. Really solid, demon flick. Again, nobody talks about it. Also, I just kind of have to do it. There is another Flesh for the Beast, Tsukiko's Curse, that one right there. Honestly, I still haven't even watched that. I have the Blu-ray here, but I've never watched it. I don't know. I don't know about that one. I can't speak to it. Next, we have The Void. This is Lovecraftian horror done right. One of the few times that, somebody really gets it and does it right. So, yeah. Then we got The Wailing. Good South Korean flick. People talked about this a lot when it came out, but it sort of slowed down. I don't know why. Next up, a great movie by a great company, the HPLH Motion Pictures, and it is Whisper in Darkness. This is made by the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society, and they just get it. This is another example of Lovecraft done right, and this is Lovecraft done in period, if you will. They use this thing they call mythoscope, and basically the idea is whatever you're making, you make it in the that time's style, if you will. So they did Call of Cthulhu, and they did it as a silent film with intertitles and stop motion creatures and everything. This is done with there's talking in this one, but it's done kind of 1930s type horror film. It works really well, and it's a great flick. Next, here's another sequel, Puppet Master 2. No one talks about Puppet Master 2. They talk about Puppet Master 3, and rightfully so. Some people talk about Puppet Master 1. But Puppet Master 2, this is the shit. This is, where they introduce Torch. Torch is one of my favorite characters. I mean, dude, he literally torches a child. And you know what I've said? If you got the balls to kill a kid in your movie, yeah, you're you're showing people you're not messing around, and Torch does one hell of a job. Next, we got Popcorn. Honestly, if you haven't seen Popcorn, you're living under a rock. I love this movie. It's so fun. I just find it so funny that, it's, where is it supposed to take place? I forget where it's supposed to take place, but the actual thing was shot in, Jamaica. And, so you have, this, a Jamaican, what are those things, steel drum band at one point, and they're just, in the street playing, music and everything, and, the movie theater, the power goes out, so they bring in this steel drum band from outside. It's, such a Jamaican thing, but it's just, so fun, so fun. Next, we have, the opposite side of that, Not so much fun, but pretty mean-spirited. Incident in a Ghostland. This is awesome. Pascal Lagar, he did Martyrs, and he came back to do this, and it's so good, so creepy. Next, we have Howl. Essentially, think werewolves attack a train. That's all you need to know. Werewolves attack a train. The train stopped, can't go anywhere. There you go. Next, we have The Barn. The Barn is so fun. That's like... I'll put it this way. They did a sequel, The Barn 2. It's not as good as The Barn, but it's still fun. So if you can see either one of them, I definitely recommend them. They're fun. Part 1 more so, though. Next up, we have Mexico Barbaro. This is a anthology film of all Mexican horror stuff, and it's really creepy. It's really weird. You got some very odd. You got a story in here about the cartels and everything and the shit that they do. You got this one guy. He's an organ salesman, so he kidnaps this kid and takes all his organs out, but then goes on to do something else to the body. I'll just leave it at that. It's twisted, really good though. Next, Rob, if you're watching this, you know the shit, because we've talked about this movie before. Intruder, such a blast. Yes, my copy is signed and numbered. I got that for free, actually, when I ordered from Full Moon. Such a fun film. Slasher in a supermarket. And it works. It works so good. Next up is a newer film. This is Last Voyage of the Demeter. Basically, it's a story of how Dracula got to Britain from Transylvania. And it's a really interesting story. Are there some modifications made to the source material? Yes. You have this guy who's a doctor who survives, where when you read Dracula, it's all hands are dead. Everyone is dead on this boat, and it's, But, honestly, a really good film. And, Dracula in this was played by, what's his name? That guy. Let me see if I can see his name. I don't know. He plays every creature imaginable. He played the Medeiros woman in Wreck and Quarantine, I think. Really good shit. Next is one, again, no one talks about this, and it's a goddamn shame. That is The Last Will and Testament of Rosalind Lee. This is directed by the guy who, what's his name, Rodrigo Godino. He used to be not the publisher, what's the word, the editor, I think, of Rue Morgue magazine, something like that. He was, high up in Rue Morgue magazine. And, I guess it's his directorial debut. Really solid, really creepy. And what else can I say? Next we have Last Shift. Last Shift is a work of art, because when you talk about Last Shift, you also have to talk about Malum, which is the next one on the list. These are the same movie. Malum is a direct remake of Last Shift, made by the same director and everything. They're such a neat idea and such a cool little world that they've built that it's really cool to watch. I definitely recommend those. Next up, we have Bite. This is by Chad Archibald. Interesting little bit of trivia. This was actually, at least some of this, was filmed about 20 minutes away from where I live. So, that's kind of cool. Canadian body horror at its best. Chick is basically, it's her wedding, and she gets bit by a bug, and she starts to change. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Next up, The Final Interview. This is by Fred Vogel. And this is a phenomenal movie and a phenomenal release. Let me put it this way. You know Fred Vogel from stuff like, August Underground and everything. You don't know him from, stuff like this. This is a movie that would, sometime way in the future, I could see a Criterion release of this. It's that good. Basically, you got this, a journalist guy, and he's interviewing a serial killer. I get, just before, he's gonna die, be executed. And it's just so good. So good. Next up, Frailty. Frailty is a classic. I mean, Bill Paxton, Matthew McConaughey, it's so good. If you haven't seen Frailty, do yourself a favor, stop the video right now, go onto Amazon, pick up a copy. I'm pretty sure you can still buy this Blu-ray, really cheap. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure the DVD is, a matter of a couple of bucks or whatever. So good. Next, we have Into the Mirror. This is the Korean film that inspired the movie Mirrors. Now, don't let that put you off. The movie Mirrors was okay. Into the Mirror is really good. An interesting little bit of trivia, if you have the Blu-ray of Mirrors, it usually comes with a copy of Into the Mirror on a DVD as well. So, you may have it and not even realize it. It's definitely worth watching, and it's definitely good. Next, you got One Cut of the Dead. This is just so entertaining. How can I put this? You watch pretty much half the movie, it's like a straight zombie film, and then it completely changes and goes in a completely different direction, and it's awesome, and it's just, you need to see this movie if you haven't seen it. Next, we have one, I've talked about this a lot. It has a fan base. It's getting a bigger fan base now, but still not enough people talk about it. Ghostwatch. Complete classic of British horror. So talking about Ghostwatch, you also have to talk about another thing from the BBC, The Stone Tape. This is actually getting it's either a Blu-ray or a 4K release from, I think it's 88 Films. Or is it? It might actually be from the 101, the same company that did the Ghostwatch one. But Stone Tape, really good flick, and you can't go wrong with British horror. There's just something about it that just makes it work. Just saying. Next up, we got Cold Prey. Slasher. Honestly, one of the best, untalked about slashers that I've ever seen. I love this movie. It's so good. From what I know, I think there are 2 sequels. I've never seen the sequels. This is the one. You find a copy of that, you're golden. Next, we're going back to Britain for this one. But this is When the Lights Went Out. This is a retelling of the Black Monk of Pontefract, if you've heard of that particular haunting. Was said to be kind of like the most violent haunting in British history, sort of thing. Really good film. Kind of hard to get now. I mean, this Blu-ray, you used to be able to find this super cheap. I think, I remember I've got it for some people or whatever, and I paid something like £4 for the Blu-ray, and now it's gone up quite a bit, but if you can find a copy, really good stuff. Next, this is a Blu-ray I made myself because, apparently movie companies hate us and they don't want us to have nice things. Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night 2. Such a fun flick. Better than Prom Night 1. Prom Night 1 is a pure slasher. This is supernatural. Mary Lou Maloney gets burned to death at her prom in like 1957. She comes back to life many years later. She's not too happy about it. Good flick. Good nudity in that one as well. Always a fun thing. Next is a movie. This is an interesting one because this is a movie that was essentially for me a 10 out of 10 right up until like the last 5 minutes, and then that dropped it down to like a 7. The movie's Come True. So good up until the last 5 minutes. The last 5 minutes throws in this twist that essentially ruins it. But the movie itself is good up until that point. It's so disappointing that was the ending they went with, because they so dropped the ball. But yeah, Come True, still a good flick if you give that one a shot. Next, this is one that had a wide release. People talked about it a lot at the beginning because they were pissed off about it. Child's Play. So yeah, here's the thing. This is not Chucky. This is a whole different thing. This is a movie that should never have been named Child's Play. This is a perfect example of Texas Chainsaw Massacre syndrome, what I've talked about before, where you make a movie, good movie, all well and good, but you put Texas Chainsaw on there, you put that name there, it ratchets up the expectations, and you're not going to live up to it. That's what happened here. Honestly, you could have called this like Good Guy or something, or like Buddy Doll or something, or You're My Buddy or something, and it would have worked fine. People would have saw the flashbacks to Child's Play, and they would have said like, oh, it's a Child's Play ripoff, but it's one of the better ones. That's what they would have said. But the thing is, you put Child's Play there. That name has certain connotations. It has certain expectations that you were doomed to never be able to really live up to. And it's a shame because it's a good little movie. Next, Midnight Meat Train. I've talked about this many times. This movie is awesome, and it's a movie that was completely screwed over by Lionsgate. The basic plot, thing behind this movie is they had a trailer that they showed at Comic-Con, I think it was, and people were going crazy about this trailer. And then when the time came to release this movie, all of a sudden Lionsgate we can't make a trailer. We can't cut together a trailer from this movie. And they ended up stuffing it into dollar cinemas, and they really did this movie wrong, because this is such a good tale. If you've never read The Midnight Meat Train by Clive Barker, definitely read it. If you've never watched the movie, look for it. You can find a double feature Blu-ray of this. It's this and Book of Blood, not the Hulu version, the other version, and it's definitely worth it. Definitely good flick, and it just pisses me off when you think about how they screwed that over. Man, they've screwed over Clive Barker so many times. It's not even funny. That, Nightbreed, a bunch of other stuff. I'm not going to get into it. Next up, Howling 2. Your Sister is a Werewolf. This movie it's a bad movie. Don't get me wrong. But you get, Sybil Danning, right? Yeah. Yeah, Sybil Danning. You get her naked breasts. And you get her in, weird little bondage type gear. It's fun. It is what it is. It has Christopher Lee in it. It's so fun. The only problem is Howling 1 is so good. Howling 3 is trash as far as I'm concerned. Some people like it, but that's to them. That's their own thing. But this is so fun. I've said before, sometimes fun can trump quality. And last up before we get to the actual, the top 10, we have The House That Jack Built. This is a movie that people talked about at the beginning, and, there are some scenes in this movie that are rough. I mean, there's a whole scene, I'm just going to say the hunting scene is, that's kind of hard to watch, and I'm a jaded as fuck horror fan, so, and even I find it a little, it's like, oh, wow. But House of Jack Built, good shit. Okay, now we're into the top 10. This is pretty much in order. So I'm starting with 10 down to 1. Number 1 is what I believe to be the most underrated film of all time. So, starting off, we mentioned Midnight Meat Train, Clive Barker, Lord of Illusions. This is a film that I've always liked. Lord of Illusions. Does it have dated effects in it in some parts? Yes. Does it have, a very, late 90s, early 2000s feel? Well, 95, yeah, so, yeah. But it also has some creepy ideas, and one of the greatest lines ever uttered by a villain, I was born to murder the world. I mean, there are some lines uttered by villains in movies that are just kind of disturbing. I was born to murder the world. That's right up there. So yeah, Lord of Illusions. This is the Scream Factory release. I know there's a new release coming out from, I want to say, Indicator, I think it is. But honestly, if you've never seen Lord of Illusions, this is one for sure. Find a copy of that. No matter how you got to do it, find a copy of that. Next up, we have a movie that has one of the most recognizable covers of all time, but Vinegar Syndrome didn't use it for their release. That is Creature. That's the cover, yeah. Otherwise known as The Titan Find. Such a good movie. Honestly, I love Creature. Basically, it's a remake of Planet of the Vampires, basically. And it's so good. And honestly, what's his name is in it? Why can't I remember his name? Klaus Kinski. And he is just chewing the scenery and being his typical rapey self. He's very, very rapey in this movie. And he's very much like a space creep. And it's still kind of awesome. I love this movie. Love it with a passion. Let's put it this way. Vinegar Syndrome cost a lot for me to buy. I bought that. Just saying. Next up is one that's going to piss some people off. I got 2 in here that are going to piss people off. But The Exorcist, Believer. If you're throwing your hands up down, you're like, oh, that movie was horrible. Fuck you and your cat. No, this is actually a really solid film. The problem here is, again, like with Texas Chainsaw Syndrome, you put the name Exorcist on something, you have a lot to live up to. And it's really hard to live up to. I honestly would have liked to have seen the rest of this. Honestly, I got to admit, 90% of the hate for this movie is because it was directed by David Gordon Green, who did the Halloween trilogy. And people were pissed off at that. And they brought it over here. It's not fair. It's not, it's not fair. This is just, it's a good movie. I don't, like, if you're subjectively, like, actually sitting there watching this film and you think it's a bad movie, I'm wondering about how your brain works, like, what you think makes a good movie, because honestly, I thoroughly enjoyed every bit of this movie. Does it hold a candle to the original? Hell no. Nothing can. But those who are so pissed off about this, you're butthurt for the wrong reasons. Just saying. Next up, this is a Blu-ray. Again, I made for myself because none exist. This is The Night Flyer. Stephen King's The Night Flyer. Such a good vampire movie and such an interesting premise. The idea of a vampire in, like, a plane, like a Cessna plane, who literally flies around the country, stopping at, like, small airports, going out, killing, then flying off into the night, and no one knows. A genuinely creepy design for the vampire, and Miguel Ferrer. I never know how to pronounce it. Miguel Ferrer. Ferrer? You know who I mean. He's in this. That dude. Yeah. And it's so good. We need a legit Blu-ray release of this ASAP. Just saying. This one here is one I rented on VHS back in the day, and I loved it. I never even knew there was a DVD release. Eventually, I found this when I was visiting my buddy up in Quebec. That is Children of the Night. This is another vampire movie, but what makes this neat is the way it goes about it. Like, most vampires, they sleep, in the ground, whatever. These are all, like, in, like, water, and, like, their lungs come out of their body and, like, flop on top, sort of thing, while they're sleeping. It's creepy. And, like, there's a whole thing, it's just such a good little film. Directed by Tony Randall as well, who did Hellbound, and he's done a bunch of other stuff, too. It's a damn good film. I don't know why this doesn't have a wider release. It deserves it. It's so good. Now we're down to the last 5. Now these are ones, I can see the argument that people have about these movies. I don't agree with them. But first up, we are starting with a sequel. And it's an interesting one. It is Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning. This has quickly become, as I've gotten older, this has quickly become my favorite. It has everything you want in a Friday movie. It's got gore, lots of gore, lots of nudity, epic kills. The only thing it doesn't have is Jason Voorhees. And that pisses people off. I don't know. It's like, come on, you don't need to get pissed off about that. It's such a good movie. And as I've gotten older, I've taken a real shine to these oddities in a series, if you will. Thusly bringing me to my number 4, which is Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. I love this movie. I tell you where the the problem with this movie happened. This should have been Halloween 2. If this had come out right after Halloween 1, you would have got it right from the get-go. You would have been, okay, so this is what they're doing. You know, different Halloween-based movie every year, and it would have been fine. The fact that Part 2 continued the Michael Myers story is where they kind of went wrong. The funny thing is, there is a way that this could have been tied into the Myers saga. Very easily, actually. I've said before, in Part 6, when that cult's there, if you just had like this one scene where like one cult member was talking to another, and they were saying something along the lines like, we've been trying stuff, you know, for millennia to try to, you know, cause like chaos. There was even this plan with masks back in the 80s that sort of fizzled out, sort of thing. And that one line could have tied this in, and it would have been perfect. Just saying. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. I love this movie. Number 3 is a movie that I have championed since I first saw it. To this day, I honestly believe it's like one of the scariest films of probably the last couple of decades, and that is The Fear Footage. Honestly, I'll just say this. If you've never seen The Fear Footage, just go onto YouTube and just type in Fear Footage Trailer 2, I think it is, and just watch that trailer. And if you're not sold, you don't have a soul. Just saying. Okay, number 2. This is going to get some hate. I already know. Halloween Ends. Come on. Get it out. Get out your shock and awe. It's like why I'm talking about Halloween Ends. Here's the thing. This was a great Halloween movie. Was it a great movie for the end of Michael Myers? No. That could have been handled a lot better. It could have... This has its issues. But I honestly believe it's issues that could have been dealt with in... How can I put this? Let's say it this way. If there is anyone out there who makes fan edits of movies, there's a way. And that's basically the stuff at the beginning of this movie with, what's his name? Damn, my eyes suck. Need some new glasses. The Corey Cunningham. The stuff with him at the beginning should have took place during the 2016 Halloween movie. And it should have been something along the lines of like, in people's minds, it's tied together. Because it happened on the same night. So, you know, this kid would have died the same night that Michael came in. And there would have been this level of, like, how can I put it? This level of disdain for this character, even back then, that by the time this rolled around and he becomes a villain, we would have not necessarily expected it, but it wouldn't have been as much of like a shift, if you will, as it is. You could also edit out scenes of him talking to Michael, because that's not really necessary. But other than that, you know, you could work it really well. This is honestly one of my favorites in the new trilogy. The scene with the tongue at the radio station, just saying, that scene is just great. I love that scene. And it all works so well. If you saw this in the theater and you hated it or whatever, and you haven't watched it since, you know what? I recommend you just go back, watch it again, leave your preconceived notions at the door and just watch it for what it is. Like I said, is it the ending that Michael deserved? No. Michael deserved a different ending to his story. As to what that ending would be, I don't know. Going into the meat grinder or whatever it was a damn cool way to end him, but I still believe it should have ended with Laurie killing Michael and then dying herself. So essentially, like, she did something that killed Michael but killed her at the same time. And the idea would have been, she sacrificed herself to get rid of him once and for all. I'd have been cool with that. So yeah, there you go. And now, number 1. The most underrated movie of all time as far as I'm concerned. If you've watched this channel, you probably know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm talking about Iced. This is a blue I made myself because we don't even have a DVD release of this. This is the greatest movie about skiing that has no skiing. It's such a fun movie. It's stupid as balls. It's completely whacked out. And I love it. I love every bit of it. It's just such a fun flick. And honestly, any movie that has like a girl who wakes up, puts a jacket on, no pants, but she puts a jacket on and then goes outside and then is being chased by a killer, so she comes back inside, locks the door, then falls asleep on the stairs. Just saying, anything that crazy has to be awesome, and this is awesome. Like I said, I made this myself. There's no official DVD or Blu release. You know what? If you want a copy, get in touch with me. I'll hook you up with one. This movie needs to be seen by more people, and it's damn good. So yeah. There you go. 42 minutes, 33 seconds. Not bad at all. So that has been the 31 Days of Horror. As usual, after this, I will probably essentially go into hibernation until the 12 Days of Black Christmas comes up. Interesting thing what I'm doing for 12 Days of Black Christmas this year, I've got the 2 Blu-ray sets of, what is it? Ghost Stories for Christmas. The BBC, or the British thing. It's like essentially they put a ghost story out on Christmas. And there's about, I think there's 12 or 13 episodes like on these 2 discs. So what I think I might do is I might be one a day for the entirety of the series. So I hope you'll enjoy that for sure. What else? I'll still be doing my vinyl updates when I get stuff and everything. It's been a bit slow recently. Haven't been going out to many places and getting many things. So, I don't know, hopefully next month I'll try to get a video out, maybe of that. Because as it is, literally, I bought 1 record. That was it. And it's a great record, don't get me wrong. I'm really looking forward to showing it off. But I'm not going to make a video just for one record. Let's be honest. But yeah, that's it for me. Happy Halloween. Hope you've enjoyed the 31 Days of Horror. And I will see you later.